It's just not about to explain you how what is an Azure account and all that. I just also wanted to help you is to understand the basic things about when you're going through this Azure cloud and all that. So how do you go in to create an Azure account? Would you need to have some work email ID and something of some sort? No. You just need to go into portal.azure.com and portal.azure.com. So I'll just keep it very simple. Portal.azure.com. Because in one interview, I was sitting in an interviewer situation, and the other person, there is another person interviewer also. So there are two members panel in interview, and there is one guy who came in, uh, uh, said as for the interview, and he started talking about what he knows in Azure and all that. He has some 4 years of experience now. Just so he didn't he was not saying that he has experience in Azure much 4 years and all that. His total experience in IT is 4 years, and he might be a database guy. Not sure his profile exactly, but he said that I was doing working on Azure from last 1 year, and we were asking some set of questions, and one my the interviewer peer have asked for what is the URL for accessing the Azure. So there you couldn't able to answer that one. So why am I trying to bring it here? So the reason is, don't try to learn if I'm clicking some button, so it doesn't mean that you're learning from that. Okay, so if you're trying to, you try to have to go and do the same activity. Now, why am I trying to explain that in Azure, creating an Azure account? Please go ahead and create an Azure account, explore it. When you're going through the videos and trying to create something, you try to replicate the same behavior, understand what are the other options, because Azure or AWS or GCP or any other clouds, by for example, they are ever there is never going what do you say, changes is going to happen. So a lot of changes which happened while I was sitting in the other front, like as a student learning Azure cloud. So from that point of view to till now, there is a lot of enhancements which happened in cloud, and that too within a very less time. So you assuming that right now what features we have, la- because if you see in my previous videos like 1.5 year 2 years back, that one where there's some specific things which I'm creating, you would see that right now in Azure cloud when you're creating it would be very different. So my point is, you have to go ahead and create one Azure account, and it is very easy. You just need to click on create one and sign in, and once you're able to sign in, it is going to ask you uh, how do I keep it? You have to log in. Once you're able to log in into your portal, you might not see in the seamless style, but if I go ahead and I'll show you how it would look like. Asking me to log in. So let me log in. Okay. This is how you will see it. You'll see a notification saying that no subscriptions and all that. And you will see this in this way. Once you log in, this is what you'll see. But you will get a free at this point of time an Azure AD free license. We'll get to that later on, but that's an Active Directory where you can manage users and all that. Now, if you wanted to create going further, whatever you wanted to create, you need to click on start the Azure free trial, and it will ask you to click on start free. And if you already have created different how do I keep it? If you have already created free trials previously, then definitely because of cookies and same phone number or same email ID, it will it'll not ensure that you can utilize to free trial again. But if yours the first time, it will help you to give you a $200 free credit to you only for a month, and the rest of the time for 12 months they'll give a free service for few things only, like some one core server something will be free of cost, or for app services you can go for free of cost one specific configuration and all that. You get a $200 free credit for a month, and there you can go ahead and choose any of the services and all that. So that's a good one to start off. Only thing we need is a credit card, not a debit card. If you are able to provide it, and if you're providing all the appropriate what do you say, your phone number or your email address appropriately, you wouldn't be having anything. So you can't, if someone of your friend have utilized your credit card for registering into an Azure account, you wouldn't have the chance to, uh, how do I keep it? You wouldn't get a chance to uh, free to again avail free credit for your uh, with that same card. You need to might end up using a different credit card. All this is important, guys, while you're creating a free trial. So if you click on start, it will take you to a page, and you click on start free. It will ask you to fill some details, your personal details and all that. Just take this one. So you should have a pop-up window enabled. Otherwise, this won't create. So it's going and checking whether are you allowed to have a free trial account or not. If you are not allowed to have a free trial account, it should show you after filling the details or before filling the details. Just don't remember that properly. But see, you're not allowed here itself is saying. So it's saying that you need to go and go for pay as you go. What is pay as you go pricing? It means that for whatever you use using for that, that's pay as you go model. So if you are trying to utilize in that way, that is fine. You are not eligible for free trial. They're not going to give me free trial account because I had you consumed a couple of free trial accounts, so I wouldn't be getting more than this. That is it. So once you are done with it, once you created a account, a free trial account, what if I'm not able to create one? If I'm not using a free trial account, or I'm not going with pay as you go account, what will be the situation? You can't create anything, because if you wanted to create any virtual machine for some consumption or load balancer or anything network or anything, any service as such, then you need to go for this mandatorily a free trial or some account, whether you have to go and pay it or whether it is a free trial or something. So here I'll explain why what is that which I'm shifting, which is not needed at this point of time when we are having a walkthrough on this. Okay, once you created it, you will see, if you go to subscriptions, it's a here it is there's a this is a search bar for Azure, and if you go and search for subscriptions, I have two subscriptions right now, and mine is a pay as you go. It will give me what is the pricing for this month, and is it active or is it. So I have a 100 rupees billing which I have for this month in so even if you're going for pay as you go, don't worry, guys. Even I'm actually creating a lot of stuff. You wouldn't be charged huge money. I don't usually get charged more than some 200 to 400 bucks and all that. But please keep in mind, if you're creating some services in Azure and or in any cloud as such, you're leaving it as it is, and the cost you will be charged for it. You created a storage account, you saved some file in it, some 1 GB file, you'll be charged for that 1 GB consumption. As long as that file and this one is a storage account is existing in that Azure account, you are kept being charged on the second basis per second. So it will charge you the price. The billing methodology goes in this way. It is not per day and all that. It's per second. How much ever you're utilizing. So it's more economical. It's economical, but definitely, please point see in the terms of server. It's it's in terms of a server hardware, the service and all that. So the charges also definitely will be huge. Uh, if you're going with a server, well, like some 2 core server or some 4 core server, you get charged some 8,000 to 15,000 per month and all that. So there's definitely an cost which comes in. So you have to keep all this in mind. Because once you create a virtual machine, doesn't mean that you'll be charged 8,000 rupees. It's 8,000 per month. So if you bring down 30 days each day into how many hours? 24 hours in each day. 30 into 24 hours, and then minutes, it is like 60 minutes, and then into 60 seconds. Now, how much ever it is live, based on that the charges. Suppose it is for 4 hours, then it is like per hour it is costing some 3 hours to 3 rupees or 4 rupees, then you're charged 12 rupees. So if you're practicing on pay as you go also, it won't be problematic, only unless when you are if you're not deleting your resources. But if you're deleting it, you won't be charged more than 200 rupees per month. My personal, or 400 rupees per month if you're being extra cautious and all that, even you're trying how much ever it is. But if you've wanted to validate how much ever you're trying to practice, my personal suggestion, or I give that advice to everyone, you are getting $200 free credit, which is nothing but above 14,000 rupees something, or to 15,000. You get a 4,500 some free credit for a month. If you're even trying to create resources and delete it, and if you're trying to go ahead, consume at least 4,000 to 5,000 bucks just by creating and deleting. If you're able to achieve that feat of practicing different services in cloud, you did a very great job. You can say that. Okay, with the free trial. So just saying you, that's how you can keep a benchmark when you say that, oh, did I really explore everything in Azure? Get a $14,500 credit, and if you're trying to uh, experience or learn things and all that, and you're able to complete some 5,000 to 7,000, if you're doing great. If you're able to complete 10,000, it is great. My point is, you're practicing, definitely you need some 4 5 hours to sit in that cloud and all that, but it's only 30 days you have, and you achieve that kind of feat of creating and deleting, and you're meeting that number of some 10,000 rupees. That is a really great one. I'm not talking about some AI models. Definitely, if you're creating an AI model, something, the charge would be definitely higher and all that. I wouldn't wanted to say in that point of view. If you're creating an AI service for just for some 10 minutes, and you tried running some stuff and you deleted it again, you won't be charged much for that. Even if you're trying to create a disk virtual machine, even if you're going for server which costs some 100 rupees per hour, that means it's even then it is less. But the server for 100 rupees per hour is actually very uh, higher also. So in free trial, there is a limit of amount. There's also a limit of size you can go ahead and create. So that limitations also you will find it. It's not easier one. But I just keep that as a benchmark. And the walkthroughs which you have to know is subscription. Sure. So I'll just keep that in a different text file. Azure subscription. So once you log in, you see Azure Active Directory, which is an identity provider tool. Identity is nothing but your email ID, and that's kind of an identity in terms for what is your identity in terms of a government when you're being in your Aadhaar, your like your if you're in another country, the whatever you have the SSN, whatever it is, could be the identity identification. So similarly in cloud, you have, or in organization, your username and your email ID and your password are the ones for your identity username and all that. Now similar, this is being maintained in Active Directory, this is being managed by Azure Active Directory in Azure Cloud. Okay, and Azure subscription is you have a billing account. Very simple. You have a billing account. So if you create a free trial, after your credits are vanished, what will happen? Would I be charged on my credit card? No. You don't be charged for your credit on your credit card. Account will be disabled and it will ask you for a confirmation. Would you wanted to shift to pay as you go model? Now, when you wanted to shift, it will not even ask. It's a from free trial. You just shift to a pay as you go, and how much ever you're using, you will be charged for that. Now, without a credit card, so without a main details, just a credit card, you will not be in a position to create a subscription. And subscription is nothing but you're having a billing account and you're being charged. So under the subscription, so this subscription is coming under actually Azure Active Directory under the which is we also term it as tenant. In Azure, we call, do you have a tenant ID? What's your tenant ID? That's nothing but what is your Active Directory? What is like in my what is my tenant ID? This is my tenant ID, and this is what. So I can create my own. If I at all I have a domain, suppose if I have a domain I purchased in GoDaddy VRKSolutions.com, okay, I can go and register that domain here, okay, and I can create whenever I'm creating users, I can say, okay, ADO user one at the rate VRKSolutions.com. Now at this point of time, the users were actually this is a domain which I got, which by default Microsoft is providing these things, domains, uh, and you're getting this one, VRK solution on my on Microsoft.com. So I can have my own. So every organization will have their own custom domains, and you can go and register that, and you can start using those and all that. But the point is, uh, the I every all these are being managed in one particular tenant, and that's where tenant ID. So I've been part of multiple other tenants, means that my user is being called in other different tenants. We'll definitely get into that one. But my point is, you might be creating an Azure account. So you will definitely have your own tenant and all that. You can invite me as a user, your tenant. So if you see in users, you can just not create a user, but you can invite an external user. So you might have you can invite me, and if I accept, I can be part of your tenant as a user. Whatever permissions you give, that is what I can have. So under the tenant is what you will have seeing Azure subscriptions. So when everyone have their own unique tenants or Azure Active Directories, they will under that they have created their own billing accounts with their credit cards, and that obviously that will be definitely unique and it will not be clubbed with the others and all that. Under the subscription is what you create resource groups, and under the resource groups is what you create resources. Resources are nothing but the services, Azure services. Now, what is a service? Virtual machine is a service. Storage account is a service. What are they? Whatever you wanted to create for some purpose, you have disk to store this. You have a virtual network to create. So these things you get habituated. What will you have to get habituated? Name for creating a network in Azure is service. That name of the service is virtual network. We also call it as VNet. The name to uh, uh, you need a service which can balance the traffic, which is incoming to a website and all that. You can use load balancer. That's the name of the service which is provided by Azure. And so that naming conventions and what type of service they're providing, you have to get habituated. But most of the times, the naming conventions are in such a way that it maps to the whatever service, whatever functionality they're providing as such. Okay, so this is how. So if you see, if there is a resource, if there is a Azure resource, then that means that there is a Azure resource group, there is an Azure subscription, and there is an Azure tenant. Okay, it's just simple. It means that let's go into a family hierarchical tree. If there is a son, there is a father, then there is a father, there is a grandfather. You go behind a great grandfather then. If you see, okay, so if you have a tenant, doesn't mean that you have Azure resources in it. Okay. If you have an Azure resources, it means that you have resource group, you have subscription, and you have tenant. The purpose of having an Active Directory is so that whoever is having that, it can actually manage the identities, the users in that. Those users can have access to subscription. To have a subscription, you need to have a billing account. And what is resource groups? Grouping of resources. Okay. So grouping of Azure resources into one group, to a group is nothing but a resource group, and you are naming that. Okay. So if you are having resource groups, doesn't mean that there is a resource in it. Okay. See, so top bottom approach uh, it will not be applicable. If you see go, if you have Active Directory, doesn't mean that it is having subscription and all that. I just showed you another one, right? I went into another tenant initially, and it was asking me to create a free try, some start an Azure account and all that, start Azure account. But if I go into this tenant, wherever this tenant, I have subscriptions in it. If I have subscriptions in it, if I go inside the subscription, go into a sub 02, click on resource groups. I created one, but I can go ahead and delete. I created it in. But if you are creating a subscription, you'll definitely not see any resource group. Okay, because you haven't created one. Okay. What is a resource group? You are just keeping like as if you're in college, you have a student group or your batch or your major, whatever it is, there's a group of students and all that. If you're in a company, there will be definitely different teams, IT team, HR team, developer, tester, and all that. You're grouping. So similarly, you are grouping some specific set of resources. So can I group one set of virtual machines into one resource in one resource group? It is your choice. Okay. Or you can keep it in different resource groups and all that. Okay. So will one resource group only will have one specific type of service? No. It can be of mix of services, hybrid services. Like you in one resource group, there is one resource group, you named it as G1. Under that, you can have storage account, you can have virtual network, you can have virtual machine, all together combined. All the services combined, you can keep it. Can I keep all the resources in one resource group? Yeah. But there are limitations to amount of things, but yeah, definitely you can go ahead and do it. But why do we create a different resource group? You easier to acknowledge, right? When you have some thousand resources, you created it. When you have 10,000 resources, you have created it, and you have it in different regions. It is very easy for you to keep it in a different resource group. Or even if it is in different regions, you have different services, different purpose. You are using one for AI models, you are using one for applications, you are using one for management operations and all that. Then you can keep a region name. Suppose it's like India, East, Central India, and then you say AI RG. Okay, whatever purpose you are trying to create, you try to keep it in that way. It's more easier. Okay, so that's why you need a resource group and you whatever resources. So suppose if I what is Azure resources and what is Azure services? This is where many people get confused. I personally seen it. So I have a virtual machine, Azure virtual machine. Is it an Azure resource or a service? Anyone try to answer that? Is an Azure virtual machine? I'm able to go and I have to click on create to create a virtual machine. But is this called a service or a resource, or is it called? It can be called both. Can anyone answer that? So it's called a service. It's not called a resource. Okay. Please understand this is a service. This you are going and creating, now if you are clicking and creating an instance called VM1, that is a resource. If you're creating VM02, that is a resource. This is a service. If you see in terms of Azure, Azure is a company and they are trying to give a service. Name of the service is Azure Virtual Machine. Now, someone utilized this service, and utilized this service means they created a machine, virtual machine. Now, when you're creating a virtual machine, you should have a name. Now, that one will be a resource, Azure resource. I can say that what all Azure resources you have. You can tell that I have 10 virtual machines, but end of the day, you're saying virtual machine there, that is a service there. But name that, like I've said VM01. What are the Azure resources you have? So you have 10 virtual VMs, run virtual machines, 10 storage accounts, 10 disks. I have 2 virtual networks. So how many Azure resources you have? 10 VMs plus 10 storage account plus 10 disks and 2 VNets is like 32 resources you have, and each one of is a different resource type. We call it as resource type, that nothing but a VM is a. But you are trying, when you go into cloud, and if I look at it, so I'm opening cloud here. I'll open this. When you click on all resources, it will show me what all instances, or how many number of virtual machines were created, how many number of storage accounts were created, in what subscription I created it. It will show me all that list. Okay. If I go into VRK sub 2, I don't have any resource created at this point of time. Now, if I go into VRK sub 01, I have one. This is a subscription. So I created 2 subscriptions with 2 with the accounts. So can you create with same credit card 2 subscriptions? Yes, you can go ahead and create. Okay. So let me not get into that right now. What I want to explain is these are resources, instances which are created. Now, what is the name of this is Network Watcher East US resource name, but the type is resource, the service is Network Watcher. So there is a service called Network Watcher. So if I go into all services, if I select network here, I will be seeing a service called Network Watcher. I have a service called Network Watcher. If I select that, this is a service. I have instances. One instance which I created is Network Watcher East US with a name. So hope you got me right now. The resource, this is also called resource type, or we call service. We call resource type in terms, we can, when we are trying to address resources, how many resources are there? You say 32 resources are there. Now you will tell what all resource types they are. And you can tell that there are 10 virtual machines, 10 storage accounts, 10 disks, and all that. Okay. Is that clear? Any questions here? Is it confusing? Yes, if it's, please tell me. If you want me to rephrase it, I'll reiterate it in a different way. So if a tenant is invited is a wrong one. If we say user is invited to a tenant, if a user is, because if I go to an Active Directory, that directory is called a tenant. Okay, in that tenant you can have multiple users. So if a user is invited to a tenant, will he be able to have a user access? No. Sorry, you'll be having an owner access? No. Okay, so there are different. So when you say owner access, we actually in Azure that will become, because there's a owner name, owner access technology is used in Azure, so it is a different one when you compare with administrator access. So in admin, so if I can tell to tenant, there are called roles which are there, which we call it as uh, global administrator role, that is equal to owner role. But when you say owner role in Azure, that will become a bit different because we use a owner role term for a different aspect entirely. I don't want to get into that subject at this point of time because that's a topic which we have in access control. So if you see, there are two roles, RBAC and Azure AD roles. So in RBAC, we have a term called highest one called owner. In Azure AD role, we have a highest one which we call global administrator. Okay, so you can see the roles here, global administrator. That so who created the subscription? Who created the tenant will become sorry. Who created the tenant? So if you're trying to have your own account as your account, you are the global administrator of that account because you created this tenant entirely. Okay, and the ten. So obviously, when you're trying to create an Azure account, what is happening is Azure is creating a tenant for you. Okay, with a domain name and everything. So you are, because it is created for you, and you will become the global administrator of your account. Now, if a user is being called to some other's tenant, they will become, if I invited here, this is a guest user. So the user type, if it is member, that means you created it. If a user type is a guest, that means you have invited someone. So what user role they have? If I see assigned roles, I would have given some roles, but so I have given to this user two roles, but by default he'll only have uh, you will not have any much roles on that. He can just log into the account and he can't even see all this activities and all that. So if I invite you as a user, so you can also try this example. You can go to users. I'll show that anyways. How do I, when I'm showing how to create users and all that, I have to show you those things. Okay. How do I manage guest accounts and all that? I have to show you there. How when I'm creating a user and I'm inviting a user, what will be the difference and all that. But yeah. So please remember this one. So if there is a son, there is a father, there is a father, there is a grandfather, and all that. Doesn't mean that if there's someone, there will be definitely under them, there will be kids and all that. It's up to one's choice that in Active Directory you can have billing accounts or you will not have any billing account. You are just having a tenant. But the whole purpose is when you are having users, there should be some billing accounts and you're using cloud and all that. Okay, and so if you're having resource groups, that means you have an Azure subscription. Without an Azure subscription, you are not allowed to create any groups. And and when you're creating a resource, it will mandatorily ask all these things. So let me go ahead and try creating something for sample point of view. I'm going and clicking on create. Now, first thing which asked me is give me the billing account. What subscription you have? Okay, if it is not active, then you will not be in a position to create one. So you have to complete mandatorily for any service in which subscription you wanted to create and which resource group you wanted. Okay, so these are the mandatory stuff. Whether you're creating from Portal, PowerShell, CLI, or Terraform, ARM, whatever methodology, you should give a subscription name and resource group name. Without that, it won't be it is not possible to create a resource. Uh, okay. So when you are inviting some user into your tenant, and you're saying that key, if there's one question, that key, okay, there are two users. Let's assume that uh, you invited users. Okay, now they have just user access. But you are the admin account. Will you be charged for it, or will everyone will be charged for that? So if I am an organization, I have 100 employees. I brought them into, I created them, each of them, or like they have their Gmail IDs. I invited each of it. Now they came in. Who will be charged? Organization is the one who will be charged for it. Now, or inviting them is fine. Okay, till a limit you can invite users and all that. There's a limit of number of users you can invite and all that. But after that, you have these users. Now everyone is having access to subscription. Okay, there are 100 users. You have one subscription. Let's keep it one subscription. You given access to the Azure subscription. Now they will go ahead and create resources. Who will be charged? Billing account will be charged. Now whose billing account it is? That whoever created that subscription. So obviously who created it? So usually the account owners are the ones who will be creating that subscriptions, right? Now when they gave access to hundreds of users, whatever they'll create, you will be charged for it. Now how do we control? No, you know to worry about it. That's why organizations also worry about it, and they'll create lot of governance. So that's why you see governance, Azure policies, all this security. Why there are so many things there? Because of these reasons, a lot of users will have access to this one, and keeping cost in mind, keeping security in mind, keeping other attacks in mind, they what all business continuity. Someone is having, suppose you are running an application in a virtual machine. Now no one is creating anything, but someone went and stopped that virtual machine. What will happen? Your service will go down. So lot of things are there. So monitoring activities and all this. So that's why the reason why you have too many roles, of because users come in and go and access the subscription. You give an access to subscription, and they can go and do anything out of it. If you are not having a control over that, you are in fact making them kind of like a owner's point of view. So can I reduce their role and I can't, can I do that things? Yes, that's where we get into access control. So we have access control for that. But yes, who will be charged for it? The owners of the subscription. Wherever you're creating that resource, that means it is having a subscription. So you will be charged for that subscription, how much ever they're using and all that. So if you're inviting some user, will I be charged for it? No. There's a limit, but whatever that user is actually doing in that Azure subscription, that is, that should be your, whoever is the owner of that bill, Azure subscription, that person has to decide. So what access and everything. That clear? Anything, any questions on this? Okay. Team, I think everyone are clear. Have a good day.